this is ironic coming from the meat mafia, but I think our show is much more than just like you eating 100% carnivore diet. Like that's really not what we're preaching at all. It's a tool, and then there's so many other important things that you need to like factor into what you should be eating. Um, and yeah, I don't think that the diet culture in general is healthy just because we stake our entire identity. I think a lot of people stake their entire identity around what camp they fall in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I've spent more time thinking about because I don't know if I would be sitting here in this capacity if it wasn't for all these incredible people, these pioneers that were sharing the playbook to follow a carnivore diet. Sean Baker's being one of them, the Chafies, the Ken Berries, and then all these kind of anonymous people on Reddit that were quietly following this diet for like 20 years before I'd ever done it. And I really tapped into those stories. And my thought process was, well, if conventional medicine is pulling me in this direction, I don't feel great and I'm on all these drugs, but these people are going a different path and they're getting off those drugs. That's ultimately the outcome that I want to engineer for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, because the podcast is called Meat Mafia and because people remember stories, so people will gravitate towards a story like mine, they blanket assume that I'm carnivore 24/7, which I completely understand. But maybe we could talk a little bit, like when you hear the word resilience, because it's something you and I, like whether we're on camera or off, like when we're living together or whatever, when we talk about resilience, what does resilience mean to you in the context of health or life?
I think it's having multiple pillars of your health that are growing and working together in tandem at the same time. So, like when I think about resilience from a health standpoint, it's, just doing some of the basics really well, like having those non-negotiables of how many steps I'm going to get, just being really dialed in on getting the right amount of sleep. And I'm saying like steps and sleep, I think if you're 90% of the time, 80% of the time, focusing on just doing those things well, so much of your health outcomes from there are just going to be better. Like if you're walking, you're getting outside, your like blood sugar is probably more regulated because you're just getting a low level amount of cardio in. And it's like not any extra strain on your body.
Yeah.
So I think having those basic pillars just really dialed in. I would add community to that too. Like I think if you're around like healthy people and have healthy relationships, like it just feeds into this equation of resiliency. And then, yeah, I think like those three as a starting point, just making sure you're rested, you're moving a bare minimum amount every single day. And then you also have other people in your life who are kind of just leading the same life and have similar values.
When you're speaking, it just I think this is so true. Literally every facet of life. Like, I think it's so important to, when you're going through tough situations or you're trying to improve your health or you're trying to figure out this business decision that you need to make, literally break it down as if like a 5-year-old tries to understand the situation.
Well, that's luckily I have the IQ of a 5 or like the mental capacity of a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So.
But it's everything we're talking about is very simple. The execution is not the easiest thing in the world. And to piggyback off of what you're saying, when you're speaking, I'm thinking resilience to me is this feeling of having great energy from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, where I'm not overthinking my meals. Like I genuinely am enjoying the taste of them. I'm enjoying the function of the meals. They're nourishing my body. They're high in protein. They're high in these different types of micronutrients. I'm not overthinking. I'm not stressing. I'm able to work out 1 to 2 times a day if I want. If I miss my workout, I know that my playbook, the blueprint that I built for myself is still so good. Just like baking in 15,000 steps, throughout the day, whether it's like the first 15 minutes when I wake up, 10 minutes after a meal for digestion, maybe I take 1 or 2 walking calls. And then the kicker is taking out the shame and morality around these like non-tribal foods. So resilience to me is you and I doing the right things when we live together throughout the week. So we can go to our buddy's wedding in North Carolina, have a couple drinks, get a crappy 3-hour night of sleep. Maybe I go back to New Jersey and have a couple slices of pizza. And it doesn't bother me because I know that God has made us to be unbelievably resilient, and you take care of yourself automatically throughout the week so that you can actually go enjoy your life or maybe pull an all-nighter or have a couple extra drinks. Like,
yeah,
I think this over rigidity is what causes a lot of people to then binge and make these diets not sustainable.
Yeah, like, part of me really resonates with, like, the machine brain where it's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna, like, optimize to every single extreme and operate a certain way, like, in every single occasion," but I feel like life is meant to be enjoyed in certain areas, like the wedding. It's like, you should be building resiliency through the week to be able to go, once a quarter to go and have an amazing time with your friends. And that doesn't need like that can also be done in a healthy way too. You don't need to necessarily stay up until 2, 3 a.m. to enjoy that time or get completely plastered. But having a few drinks and being in the moment is definitely better than being the guy who's like, no, I'm not gonna have like a piece of the wedding cake or, you know, like because I think people do walk themselves into those types of corners. And in extreme situations, maybe it makes sense. Like I don't want to like rule that out, but I think for most people, it's like take care of yourself 6 days a week so that on that seventh day, you can maybe loosen up a little bit. And I think for me, it's like if one day out of the month, I'm able to just like kick it and enjoy myself and do like go, I don't even know what my guilty pleasures really are. Like go get some ice cream, then I'll go do that.
Yeah.
Um,
But you're not sitting in shame though,
yeah,
because
no,
Harry knows that he's doing the right things. And dude, like something that you and I really bonded over when we first started the brand was like this kind of like love and wonderment for the way Anthony Bourdain lived his life.
definitely.
And I love watching his videos, and there are so many comments that will people that just miss him so much. And
Mm,
he had this rare quality where you felt like you were best friends with him, even if you had never met him before.
yeah.
And I feel like one of the things that I've admired about you is that you've traveled a lot and you've lived in Europe and all these different countries. And I remember when I was really dialed in on Carnivore, I was so mission focused on healing. And then I also had this love of Bourdain. And I'm like, like when I go to, if I want to go explore Italy or some of these villages or travel around the world, like, am I not going to eat all these like pastas and tomato sauces and gelatos and have a beer? And I don't know. I was just like, I think life is just very, very short at the end of the day. And I
Yeah.
think food, whether it's super healthy or not healthy, is just this bonding experience. And I think one of the things I've decided last year, and you have too, is like, I don't want to live my life without being able to chase those experiences as well. And I'm not
Mm,
saying that as an excuse to eat like crap, but I want to take care of myself so I can reward myself and see all that the world has to offer before my time on the planet is done.
dude, such a good point. And as you were talking, I was thinking about my time in Italy because I was living with a host family over there, and culturally, it was very different. Around the just culture around food was very different. Like, you would 100% of the time sit down and eat breakfast with your family, and the breakfast would usually be insanely small. It would be like an espresso, and like a lot of times they would have like a little biscuit with it. So,
That's it.
dude, or like a piece of fruit, something incredibly small, but just to like get your day going. And so even there, it's like you think about the American breakfast, a lot of people are either like, you know, maybe over indexing, choosing not to eat breakfast at all, which I actually enjoy. Like, that's worked really well for me. Or, they're eating some like Pop Tart or something that is just going to cause them to crash for the
Mm,
rest of the day. But the element of it being like a meal with your family at the beginning of the day, that's small. You're getting a coffee in there too. Like it was just it was something that made me pause. I was like, wow, it's really different. And then, they'll have a light lunch back at home. So breakfast and lunch are very light, and then they'll have a dinner that is usually like protein centered, like fish was often on the menu or like some sort of meat dish and then like pasta on the side. But it was never eating, like, I just remember the portions always being like very appropriate, and they walk a ton,
mm.
you know, they're outside a ton. They hang out, after work, they'll go get a beer with a friend, and they won't drink to excess, but they'll go sit outside, walk around. There's just a different lifestyle over there. And I feel like just the US, it's tough to live that way, but if you can be mindful of it, they're just like born into it. They don't
Yeah.
they don't know any different.
Yes.
But I think they're in general a lot healthier.
Well, one of the things that you've said is that there's almost no option There's the only option when you're in a country like that is to be healthy because these healthy practices are just baked into the culture.
Yeah.
So, like, whether you're thinking about it or not, like, you're having a black espresso, something small, so you're in a caloric deficit, you're eating real food, some pasta, some grains, whatever, but it's all really pure quality food. And from a macronutrient perspective, you're probably maintaining or you're in a deficit. But I think moving your body is so important. And I do think that there are a lot of people in the health and wellness space that are like, it's all nutrition. Don't worry about exercise. Exercise can even be detrimental. And nutrition is such a massive lever to pull. But I think that's one of the things that we've both really figured out the last the last year is dude, it could be so basic. And I think because there's so many choices, it's so difficult to bounce from thing to thing. Where if all you did was shoot for 10 to 15,000 steps a day, which is probably an additional 500 to 800 calories burned, and just pick some type of like resistance training, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's Barry's boot camp, whether it's bodybuilding style training at the gym, whether it's a personal trainer, whatever that program is, if you stick to something and you get those steps in and then you get the protein dominant foods dialed, dude, you're going to be unrecognizable in 6 months.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compounding. And I think most people, when they enter the health and wellness space, they're looking to bite off more than they can chew,
Yeah.
make the complete change overnight, which works. But I think it really takes a select person to make that work. If you're looking for the long term, you know, transformation that lasts forever, it's just small things. It's like 20 minutes on the elliptical in the morning that you like just don't miss. And like that's like your movement to get your day started.
Yeah.
Or, you know, just like really being mindful of, you know, where you're getting your food from, cooking your meals, things like that. Like I just think the little things are where it compounds the most.